Welcome. Today we're going to be taking a look at Crusaders Thy Will Be Done. This is a 2 to 4 player area movement strategy game where you take the role of a grandmaster of militaristic orders like the Knights Templar in the time of the Crusades. You will be moving your knights, erecting buildings, and crusading your way across Europe, trying to gather influence. Once all of the influence runs out, King Philip disbands the groups and the game ends. The player with the most influence at the end of the game and after the final scoring is the winner. Now that we know what the winning condition is, let's take a look at the components, the setup, and how a round and turn work in Crusaders Thy Will Be Done. Now let's take a look at the components for Crusaders Thy Will Be Done. Starting with the main game board. The main game board has two sides. One side is for a 2-player game and the other side's for a 3 or 4-player game. Next are our general components. We have building tiles, majority award tiles, knight order tiles, influence tokens, the first player token, enemy discs, action tokens. Then in each of the player colors you have your player board, your rondel wedges, your knights and buildings. You have 3 knights and then 4 of each of the building types. In the regular edition, you have the wooden version, and then in the deluxeified version, you have both the wooden and the miniature version. Your troop tiles, now let's take a look at the setup. We're going to be setting this up for a 2-player game, which takes 12 steps. Step 1, choose and place a player board. Step 2, place your rondel wedges. One player will randomly place their starting rondel wedges on their player board, and then all of the other players will match that setup. Step 3, place your buildings and knights. Your third knight will go on your player board before it gets placed on the main game board. Step number 4, place 2 action tokens on each of the rondel wedges. Step number 5, place your troop tokens face down in order at the top right side of your player board. Step number 6, take 2 random knight order tiles, choose one, and place it at the top left of your player board. After you've chosen, make sure that you read your knight order token to see if any setup effects take place. So in this case, the blue player will have to remove one of their action tokens from their rondel. Step 7 is to place the main game board, making sure that you place it on the correct side based on the number of players. This can be found at the top of the board. If you're playing a 2-player game, you'll see 2 players at the top. If you're playing a 3 or 4-player game, you'll see that at the top of the board. Step 8 is to place the enemy tokens. You're going to place 1 Prussian token and 1 Slav token on their tracks at 3, and then the rest will get shuffled and randomly placed on flag circles on the main game board. When placing the brown enemy token, make sure that you place it with the troop or building face up. Step 9 is to place the building tiles randomly on the main game board. Step 10 is to choose a starting player at random, give them the first player token, and then players will place knights in reverse turn order on the starting locations. The starting locations are the square boxes that have the horse icons in them. Step 11 is to stack and place majority award tiles. Step 12 is to place a number of influence tokens based on the number of players. You will see this number at the top of the main game board next to the number of players. So for a 2-player game, you're going to place 140. A 3-player game, you'll place 200. And then a 4-player game, you'll place 260. Now let's take a look at the gameplay. Each turn, you will either resolve an action or upgrade a rondel wedge. When resolving an action, you are going to choose one of the wedges in your rondel with action tokens, and then perform or pay that many of the action, and then at the end, you will distribute your action tokens in a clockwise form. There are 5 types of actions that are located on your rondel. Upgraded wedges on your rondel would allow you to either split between 2 actions that are located on that wedge, or you could spend all of the action tokens for one of the 2 actions. The first type of action we'll look at is travel. So when utilizing this action, how many ever action tokens is located on that location would allow you to travel that many spaces. So the number of actions is equal to the number of movement, along with any bonuses that you may have. So in this case, at the beginning of the game, it is worth 2. When traveling, if you are leaving a location with an enemy token, like in the case with the blue player, you would pay an extra movement to leave. So that means that your next movement would cost you 2. The second action is muster. This is where you will use the action tokens and any bonuses to gather extra troops at the top of your player board. You have to pay the lowest level, so at the beginning of the game the cost is 3, and then you would be able to flip that tile over and gain the influence based on the level. So if it was the first level, you would gain 1 influence. When flipping these over, they will add a bonus to your Crusades. The third type of action is the Crusade. You will use action tokens in Crusade locations and any bonuses to eliminate enemy tokens in locations where your knight is located. When battling Slav or Prussian enemies, you have to have a number equal to their track number on the right side of the game board. Once you defeat those enemies, you would gain the influence that is located on that track and then raise their track level. When crusading against the brown enemy, you would pay greater than or equal to 6. When facing the enemy with the brown enemy tokens, you have to have 6 or more, and then you will gain 3 influence or the corresponding effect located on that particular token, where you can build a building immediately or muster a troop. Then you will collect the corresponding level of influence for that particular building or troop. The fourth type of action is influence, where you will gain the number of influence tokens equal to your action tokens and any bonuses. The fifth type of action is the build action. You will use action tokens and bonuses to build a building. Check the building tiles of the location for any adjustments to that particular cost. You will place the building and collect influence equal to the level of the building and any building tile bonuses. When building castles that gain you knights, that particular knight will go in the castle that you just placed. When you have 2 knights on the board, you can split your movement. So looking at an example turn, blue could build a bank utilizing the building bonus on his starting location. Because the building level was 1, he would gain influence equal to that number. Then the orange player could decide to travel, and then based on having 2 action tokens on his travel location, he could move up to 2 spaces. Instead of resolving an action, you can also upgrade one of your rondel wedges. To do so, you would take your entire turn to do this and pull off your action tokens of the tile that you want to upgrade, flip the wedge over, place the action tokens back on that wedge, and then you have the option of distributing tokens from any one wedge in your rondel. Then rounds would continue until all of your influence tokens have been taken, and then we would go into the final scoring. The first step in the final scoring is to award enemy majority tiles to the players who defeated that particular enemy the most. Step 2 is to award victory points or influence tokens for your level 4 buildings. There are leftover influence tokens that you can use for this step. Then you will add up all of your influence points, and the player with the most influence points wins Crusaders, Thy Will Be Done.